to inform you about the social sustainability issue of eating disorders. First, I will describe what the eating disorder is and the three most important, most common types of it. Second, I will talk about what factors the environment has on developing the prevalence of eating disorders. And third, I will talk about what factors the environment has on reducing the prevalence of them. To begin with, I would like to define the eating disorder. According to the National Eating Disorder Collaboration, eating disorders are serious, complex, and potentially life-threatening mental illnesses. They are characterized by disturbances in behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes to food, eating, and body weight or shape. Eating disorders have a detrimental impact upon a person's life and result in serious medical, psychiatric, and psychosocial consequences. Even though identifying actual cause of eating disorders is complicated, it is the fact that one of the risk factors is the environment and the society. According to NAD statistics, eating disorders are among the deadliest mental illnesses, second only to opiate overdose. Also, 10,200 deaths each year are the direct result of an eating disorder. That's one death every 52 minutes. The most common types of eating disorder are anorexia nervosa. According to the Breathe Life Healing Center's experts, consider it to be the most deadly of all mental illnesses because it has the highest mortality rate. People with anorexia generally view themselves as overweight, even though they're dangerously underweight. They tend to constantly monitor their weight, avoid certain types of food, and severely restrict their calories. The second one is bulimia nervosa. According to the same source, bulimia occurs when someone is repeatedly binging on the large amount of food and then purging it. Purging behaviors include forcing oneself to throw up, over-exercising, and using diet pills. And lastly, binge eating disorder. That one includes the episodes of binging on the large amounts of food, which also can lead to bulimia nervosa later. Binging is followed by feeling guilty and ashamed afterwards, and also causes weight gain. Now, let's talk about the environmental factors. They are one of the most important variables involved in the development of eating disorder. For example, media. According to Very Well Mind, millions of dollars are spent each year marketing both the beauty and diet industries. This results in a constant barrage of images and messages discouraging men and women from being satisfied with their bodies and encouraging them to change their appearance. According to Mirror, we spend great deal of time on social media sites, which provides an additional forum for self-comparison against the thin ideal and increased body dissatisfaction. Another factor is that depending on the family the child grows up in, it may be involved in developing the prevalence of eating disorder from a very young age. According to the mentalhealth.net, families with members who already have eating disorders, for example, parents, tend to be overprotective and focused on success. Many children have these kinds of families try to achieve the appearance of success by being thin and attractive, even if they do not feel successful. If children perceive that they are failing to live up to family expectations, they may turn to something that seems more easily controlled and something that they might be more successful, such as food restriction and weight loss. There might be also other social problems within the family, for example, domestic violence, alcohol or drug use, and divorce. These events might cause a significant trauma that might be developed into eating disorder eventually. Healthy environment causes a good influence on preventing eating disorders and decreasing their prevalence. According to Mayo Clinic, prevention begins with communication. For example, sharing the danger of dieting and emotional eating, and encouraging healthy eating habits in the family, such as eating together as a family, or encouraging children to eat only when they're hungry. In addition, discussing social media and promoting what is healthy body image. Those are the ways to create the awareness about unrealistic social standards. Also, according to Casa Palmera, avoiding categorizing foods as good and bad is helpful for eating disorder prevention. A healthy balanced diet is focused on the whole foods, but it's not limited to certain type of food only. In conclusion today, I would like to say that I have informed you about the social sustainability issue of eating disorders, as well as environmental factors that develop and reduce their prevalence. As you can see, eating disorder is a complex, serious, dangerous mental illness that might have different types. Eating disorders remain the deadliest mental illnesses, and acknowledging this factor and taking it seriously can prevent society from developing it. Thank you.
You know that 500 million single-use plastic straws are used every day in the United States? That doesn't even include the amount that's used throughout the rest of the world. Plastic straws are extremely overused and overproduced, therefore adding to the major issue of plastic pollution. As users of plastic straws, it is important for us to know the effects they have in our environment. As an employee in the restaurant industry for the past 3 years, I have witnessed the number of plastic straws used and wasted at my job. Over the past couple of weeks, I have read many articles and done a lot of online research to obtain information about plastic straws. I found that plastic straws are not biodegradable and difficult to recycle, therefore end up in the habitats of our wildlife and harming our environment. Plastic straws are affecting our environment negatively because they are not biodegradable and are hard to recycle. Plastic straws are made from polypropylene because it is extremely durable and flexible. This plastic is non-biodegradable, meaning that the plastic cannot be broken down naturally by insects and bacteria. According to the website Flowwater, this type of plastic takes almost 200 years to decompose, and despite breaking apart into smaller pieces, the plastic itself never fully dissolves. Because it is not biodegradable, the other option would be to recycle the plastic straws. But this is not easy either. Many recycling plants do not accept plastic straws because they are made from polypropylene. The company Tembo Paper are producers of sustainable and biodegradable paper straws. On their website, they state that even if plastic straws are accepted for recycling, they are so small and light that they are often sifted out at mechanized recycling plants and sent to the landfill anyway. So even recycling plastic straws is not a good solution to stop the harm they cause on our environment. Now you have learned that ultimately plastic straws end up in the garbage and in landfills because they cannot be recycled properly and do not decompose. You are probably wondering, how do these straws go from the garbage to the habitats of our wildlife? Well, it's a lot easier than it may seem. Many wildlife habitats are filled with plastic waste, especially our oceans. Plastic straws are so lightweight that they can easily be blown into places they should not be. They make their way from the garbage or landfill into our waterways and are carried to the ocean. According to the website Our Last Straw, nearly 7.5 million plastic straws were found on the U.S. shorelines during a 5-year cleanup research project, and approximately 8.8 million tons of plastic pollution flows into the oceans each year, an amount expected to double by 2025. Plastic straws are also a large part of litter found on the beach. Tembo Paper reported that a large beach litter pickup found that straws were the 7th most collected item. When straws are this close to the water, they are bound to be blown into it. According to the website World Wildlife, within the next decade, there could be a pound of plastic for every 3 pounds of fish in the ocean. So straws are easily blown from the garbage to our waterways and travel down to the ocean, but what real harm do plastic straws cause to our environment? We are beginning to see the major effects of single-use plastic straws are having on our planet. Plastic straws are adding to the waste that is putting a lot of wildlife in danger. Many animals get caught in plastic or mistakenly consume it. Sea turtles, fish, seabirds, whales, and seals are just a few of the estimated 700 to 800 species suffering the effects of plastic pollution. According to the website Center for Biological Diversity, animals that consume plastic waste can choke, sustain internal injury and die, or starve by thinking they're full. Unfortunately, there are at least 100,000 marine mammals that die every year as a result of plastic debris. This continues to show just how much plastic waste there really is in our oceans. Plastic waste is not only hurting animals, it's hurting us as well. As I mentioned before, plastic straws are made from polypropylene. Tembo paper found that as the plastic degrades, it also exudes harmful chemicals such as bisphenol A that have been linked to environmental pollution and health problems. These smaller pieces of plastic that are left behind after degrading have made its way into our groundwater and our food supply. This is a result of fish consuming plastic, therefore entering our food chain. Exposure in any way to this plastic has been linked to cancers, birth defects, impaired immunity, endocrine disruption, and other ailments. So today you have learned why single-use plastic straws are not able to degrade naturally or be recycled easily, how plastic straws enter the habitats of our wildlife, and the negative impact plastic straws have on our environment. Now you have gained a lot more knowledge on how plastic straws have affected our environment and the need to decrease our use of them. So the next time you go to get a coffee or eat out, opt out of using a plastic straw and help to better our planet.
You are having a good day at the Lake Erie beach. You are enjoying the nice feel of the cool water and fresh air around you. The next day, however, you wake up and have pains all over, feel dizzy, and have a headache. The cause? Cyanobacteria, or blue-green algae. Today, I will explain to you what cyanobacteria is and its effects on us and Lake Erie, how it gets to Lake Erie, and how we can stop it. In order to understand what I am talking about, I will start by explaining to you what cyanobacteria is. There are a few main types of algae: Euglenophyta, Chrysophyta, Rhodophyta, Chlorophyta, and Pyrophyta. Pyrophyta also has negative health consequences for humans, but only in saltwater areas. You might be wondering, why haven't I mentioned cyanobacteria? This is because cyanobacteria is not scientifically considered to be algae, since it is a prokaryote and not a eukaryote. What this means is that cyanobacteria does not have a nucleus or genetic material center. Cyanobacteria can produce a variety of toxins, collectively called cyanotoxins, which have negative health consequences for humans. According to the Environmental Working Agency, which specializes in drinking water contaminants, the effects of these toxins range from sore throat, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and liver damage with short exposure to cancer and liver failure with long exposure. Cyanobacteria does not only have negative effects on humans though. According to the CDC, its effects are also present in animals, which, according to the amount of exposure, can possibly die within days. When cyanobacteria dies, its decomposition can remove the oxygen from the water and lead to hypoxia in lake life. This means that the oxygen from the water will be depleted and thereby suffocate the animals living in it. This problem is the most common since not all cyanobacteria produce cyanotoxins. So right now, a question might be, how and why are cyanobacteria getting to Lake Erie and forming blooms? There are always spores of algae around. All they need is for the right conditions to occur and they can form a bloom. Blooms are when algae grow so quickly that they begin to cover the surface of the water that they are on. Blooms start due to the high presence of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water. This can happen when there's dumping of things into the water like sewage overflow and fertilizer runoff. In Erie's case, a lot of fertilizer gets there by flowing down the Maumee River, which is connected to a lot of farmland. Additionally, Ohio's sewage system tends to overflow often and dump a lot of sewage into the lake. Blooms also occur when there are higher temperatures. Global warming is increasing temperatures and increasing blooms as well. We now know part of the reason why blooms occur and are occurring more frequently. The question now is, how do we stop it? The best way to stop something is to get it at its roots. The Northeast Ohio Sewer District website has discussed a program called Project Clean Lake on their website. Its mission is to stop the antiquated sewage system of Northeast Ohio from overflowing. Currently, Northeast Ohio's sewer system is unable to deal with large influxes of sewer water during storms and snowmelts. These overflows go directly into Lake Erie and contribute to the occurrence of blooms. Project Clean Lake is attempting to deal with this problem by creating storage tunnels for sewer overflows so they can deal with it. As of now, according to their website, they plan on constructing a total of 7 tunnels, 3 of which are currently operational. Another solution is using less fertilizer on farmland. When fertilizer is overused, it runs off into rivers and ends up in large water sources like Lake Erie and contributes to blooms, a problem particularly true for Lake Erie. In conclusion, you should now know what cyanobacteria is and its effects, how it gets to Lake Erie and blooms, and how we can work towards stopping it. As with almost every problem, the solution lies within educating the public and informing them about what is happening in the waters around where they live. In solving this problem, we can regain access to areas like Lake Erie and regain the ability to enjoy our natural water sources.
In the 4th grade, I joined the reciting club with my friends. I remember in the beginning we would have to watch an introductory video about why recycling is important. In the video, I learned about the 3 R's, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle, and with it, we can protect the environment. After I learned about it, I try to recycle the best I can. I believe my audience should listen if they want to learn how to keep and preserve our environment as we continue to walk and live on it. When you recycle an item, you assist in conserving the environment. I connect with this topic because I believe and I like to conserve the place we live and breathe in. I've done the research that is with lots of credibility and non-bias. I will talk about 3 topics. I will talk about landfills, reusable resources, and how recycling affects our environment. I will first talk about reducing landfills. An article by Ecosystem says that the EPA admits that all landfill liners will eventually leak, and with their toxic liquid, it will seep into our soil and groundwater supplies. Recycling keeps materials out of our landfills where they cannot contaminate into the groundwater system, which is very important if we want to continue having a safe and clean environment. Another research was done at the University of Pittsburgh stated that every ton of recycling paper, we can help save 17 trees, nearly 7,000 gallons of water, and 3.3 cubic yards of landfill space. Before Pennsylvania recycling law was passed in 1988, about 97% of states' waste was in landfills. And another important thing I'd like to point out is that for every job at a landfill, there are 10 jobs in recycling, processing, and 25 jobs that are in recycling-based manufacture. The recycling industry employs more workers than the auto industry. That is all I have to say about reducing landfills. I will then go and talk about reusable resources. There are many things about reusable resources. Some common products that can be recycled and reused contain aluminum cans, car bumpers, and carpeting. Nearly 90% of what we throw away can potentially be recovered, then reused, recycled, and possibly compensated, stated in the article by the Ecosystem. Another thing I like to point out is that plastic bottles are recyclable into carpets, clothing, and auto parts, and new bottles. Even paper recycled into new papers, and some grades of paper can be recycled up to 7 times the amount it originally can. Now, with that being said about reusable resources that can be recycled, I will now go into our final topic about how it affects our environment. All environmental benefits of recycling, such as reducing pollution and greenhouse gas emission. Recycling also protects natural resources and it reduces environmental damage caused by mining and the process of raw material. With recycling, it can save energy because processing recycled materials generally consume less energy. When energy demands decrease, fewer fossil fuels are burned, and less carbon dioxide and other pollutants are emitted into the atmosphere. Recycling also increases storage carbon in forests. Like trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they store it in their wood. When we recycle paper, products and waste prevention allows more trees to remain standing in the forest where they can continue to remove carbon dioxide from our atmospheres and continue to release oxygen. With that being said, my last main point, I like to conclude that I have stated about how we can save space in landfills, how stuff we use around us can be reusable resources, and how recycling affects our environment. When you recycle an item, you assist in conserving the environment. In conclusion, I have expressed how we can reduce landfills, reusable resources, and how recycling can help us keep our environment clean. I believe the importance of recycling I have spoken about has come to a long way since then. I will continue, and I hope you guys can continue to help our environment grow and keep clean.
According to an article from Environmental Science and Policy, I quote, "Though the air pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions have been significantly reduced from the direct effects of national quarantines, these reductions may be extremely short-lived." As a people, we are generally aware of the impact the pandemic had on our economy during shutdown. What we don't always consider is the positive side to production and manufacturing shutdowns. One benefit to the turmoil of COVID-19 is that our ozone could take a much-needed break from the greenhouse gas emissions, specifically CO2. As a personal interest of mine, over the years I have researched ways to have a greener home and have been successful in significantly reducing my family's carbon footprint. Understanding, measuring, and reducing your carbon footprint should be your focus as our economy returns from pandemic shutdowns. I don't want you to fear the greenhouse effect, although we typically see it as a huge concern. It's a natural process that keeps the planet habitable for you and me. Like a greenhouse, the gases released into the atmosphere trap heat so we don't freeze to death. The concern is the amount that we humans are unnecessarily adding to the atmosphere, causing our climate to warm up to dangerous levels. Although there are several types of greenhouse gases, we will look at the majority contributor controlled by human behavior. According to the EPA, carbon dioxide, or CO2, is the primary greenhouse gas emitted through human activities. In 2019, CO2 accounted for about 80% of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. Also worth noting, the inventory of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in sinks also calculated that of that 80%, transportation and electricity make up the majority. Each of us contribute to these levels, and that can be called our carbon footprint. So we have a general idea about what greenhouse gases are, what they do, and what human behavior makes the biggest impact on our environment. What do we do with that information? To reduce your carbon footprint and measure your efforts, you need a baseline. Do you know what your estimated carbon footprint is today? Let's explore ways to measure your footprint. Starting with the heavy hitters, electricity and transportation. The EPA has an interactive household carbon footprint calculator. That is a great way to get a rough estimate at no cost through a short questionnaire. For those homeowners out there, consider a home energy audit. Dominion Energy offers energy audits at a very low price in Cuyahoga County. According to Adam Kahn, a professional certified building analyst, air sealing and insulating can achieve savings in excess of 20% depending upon the age and construction type of your home. Regarding transportation, consider the year of your vehicle and whether you could benefit from an emissions check. Another way to track your emission output, track your mileage. How much are you actually driving? In the current state of fuel prices, this may benefit your wallet as much as the environment. A less talked about topic, but a personal favorite of mine, is household waste. our household conducted an experiment that I call Know Before You Throw. I removed all trash bins from our home and required that trash be placed on a table in our main living area. You would be surprised at how much you throw away. A lot of times, trash is out of sight, out of mind the minute it's put in an external bin. You may not have to go to that extreme, but it helps to understand where your waste comes from when you start to consider ways to reduce it. Home energy audits and travel awareness are great ways to start knocking down the heavy-hitting categories of CO2, electricity, and transportation. Now that you have a baseline for your carbon footprint that we can actually measure, let's explore ways to reduce it. There are plenty of programs to help offset the cost of making your home more energy efficient. Dominion offers the Energy Star program that can provide more comfortable and energy efficient home, as well as up to $1,250 in rebates. The U.S. Department of Energy also offers loan programs. Now, when considering the amount you drive, think about carpools and reducing the number of trips you take. Simple. A quick way to cut the amount of household trash you contribute is to compost food waste. An experimental study documented in the Journal of Environmental Education used worm farms in apartment complexes and found that composting food waste diverts waste from landfills, thus helping to abate global emissions of methane and other greenhouse gases. At the same time, it produces a useful product that can improve soil structure and plant growth. Food for thought. The Food and Agricultural Organization claims that roughly 1/3 of the edible parts of food produced for human consumption gets lost or wasted globally, which is about 1.3 billion tons per year. The last tip is a quote, and it comes from a hero of mine. David Ness interviews my hero, Professor Walter R. Stahl, an expert in sustainability and circular economies. Professor Stahl shows the proverb, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. As you examine your household waste, consider what of those items you can replace with a reusable solution instead. With those words of wisdom, let's recap. Carbon emissions largely contribute to the greenhouse effect that negatively impacts our climate. We all should examine our carbon footprint with measurable methods to foster awareness of our impact on the world we live in. Then, using your carbon footprint as a baseline, continuously find ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle to chip away the amount you contribute. Understanding, measuring, and reducing your carbon footprint should be your focus as our economy returns from the pandemic shutdowns. I might be dating myself, but an all-time favorite cartoon of mine growing up was Captain Planet. Captain Planet and his Planeteers were always fighting pollution to our planet. The theme song was something like, Captain Planet, he's a hero, gonna take pollution down to zero. And the Captain Planet tagline was, the power is yours. I hope you have learned some valuable tools to help you measure and reduce your carbon footprint. And if nothing else, you got to hear me sing. Let something good come from this pandemic, and let's continue the momentum of carbon emission reduction by taking these steps at home. As Captain Planet would say, the power is yours.
Natural resources have become a global commodity and essential for human life. These resources include naturally occurring living and non-living elements of the earth. These elements are broken down into two categories: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources include plants, trees, and animals, and these resources are considered renewable because they can be regenerated over a reasonable amount of time. Non-renewable resources include coal, oil, and other minerals and are considered non-renewable because they take millions of years to regenerate. Lastly, there is sustainable energy, which is considered a renewable resource and can be defined as energy provided by the earth, such as wind, hydro, solar, and geothermal energy. Without the use of these natural resources, humans could not survive. Think about it. Lumber from the trees is used to build homes. Plants create the air we breathe and some food we eat. Animals also supply some of the food we eat. Minerals such as coal produce heat as well as other consumer products. Oil is used for travel, and water is essential to human life. Throughout history, countries have competed for these natural resources. In some cases, this even led to war. For instance, the Persian Gulf War in 1990 was mainly due to the desire of Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, to control a large oil reserve in Kuwait. If successful, this would have greatly benefited Iraq economically. Another example would be Russia, who supplies a large amount of gas to Europe. This creates a dependence on Russian oil, and gives Russia an economic advantage. These countries are competing for oil and gas. However, the burning of fossil fuels is bad for the earth. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the emissions from cars, trucks, coal-fired power plants, large industrial operations, ships, and airplanes are released back into the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the atmosphere, which is causing global warming, acid rain, and the formation of smog. For these reasons, scientists have been competing for decades to find more friendly source of sustainable energy. For the past several years, there has been an enormous push for electric cars. This would eliminate dependency on oil as well as eliminate the emissions of fossil fuels from cars, which again is harmful to the earth. Another example of sustainable energy innovation is solar panels and windmills. Roofs of homes to absorb energy from the sun and convert it to energy the home can use. The only downfall to solar panels is there are too many factors that affect the amount of energy to provide shade, overcast, temperature. According to umatter.world, solar panels are expensive and with low efficiency. Another source of sustainable energy is wind turbines. According to the United States Geological Survey, the U.S. has constructed more than 70,800 turbines since 1980. One wind turbine can generate enough energy to supply 1 month's electricity to 940 homes. The only downside to wind turbines is that they are expensive to construct. The main advantage of wind and solar energy is that they create energy independence for the home or organization. However, the average consumer does not have enough money to add solar panels or wind turbines to their homes as they are very expensive. According to Consumer Affairs, on average, it would cost an Ohio home $14,000 to have solar panels installed, whereas a residential wind turbine is only a few $1,000s. The break even for converting to solar energy is well over 10 years, but this also depends on the location of the home and the exposure to the sun. Therefore, until the price of converting to wind or solar energy decreases, we will most likely not be seeing complete conversions to sustainable energy anytime soon. Natural resources are essential to human life. However, the key to energy consumption is being able to use these resources for an extended period of time, as well as ensuring that we are not harming the earth when we are using these resources. That is why sustainable energy is emerging as the way of the future and will continue to do so. So the next time you are at the dealership looking for a cool car or truck, take into consideration what will be supplying energy to your vehicle. Because there very well may be have been a war over the oil that you're using, and you could be doing more harm to the earth than good if you purchase an energetically irresponsible vehicle. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Primeau, and this is my sustainability speech. Let me tell you about the seed and an idea that I had with a friend of mine a few years ago. It was planted during the tumultuous COVID-19 lockdowns, and it's starting to send up some green shoots because the possibility is that it may just be the right idea for the right time and the trouble that everybody's facing right now. It's called front yard farming and front yard forests. They're two educational and experiential outreach programs, and they seek to turn the underutilized American front yard into a productive and useful component of a transition to a lower energy input lifestyle. One sunny afternoon in 2019, my friend Gary saw me tending to my Brussels sprouts up on the second floor patio garden that I was experimenting with at the time. And he called up that he had an idea. He's a contractor and a landscaper, and like me, he doesn't really care much for aesthetics that don't have much function. He had just finished installing a truckload of trees at some McMansion in North Royalton, and he said it made him angry that they had clear-cut a neighborhood into the woods, plopped down some plastic boxes, shipped the woods back in by planting a sad imitation around the houses and the empty squares all around, and he thought he could use all the machinery that he had just deployed for installing all of that into turning honest-to-goodness farm plots out of suburban front yards. And he could make it a trend, not conspicuous consumption, but conspicuous production. I said, let's make it one better. Instead of planting trees to block out the neighbors, we could convince people to plant trees that block out the sun and maybe reduce the amount of air conditioners blasting away, because I can hardly hear you up here over all of them. The idea was kicked around in various ways, and since then, but because of what's going on now, it's become an earnest pursuit as items have just disappeared from store shelves and inflation has pushed the cost of heating and cooling homes into vulnerable territory. So I'm pushing forward the only way that I know how to. I'm converting what I'm already doing, school, into a means to an end, turning all of my projects into the nonprofit, the Front Yard Forest and Front Yard Farming Initiative. Why isn't anyone doing this, you may be asking, or why do I need to state the obvious? If you're more familiar with gardening and practical ways to reduce consumption, that's probably what you would say. I know my great-grandparents and grandparents had large in-ground gardens with soil conditioned over years of care, but that kind of teaching has gone out of style. Most people don't garden and have a lot of sources saying to avoid gardening because of all the hassle it can bring. If you think about it, lawns aren't just a pain to mow and maintain or hire people for. They support billions of dollars in industry and services that are seeking the most efficient means to profit from you and your grass. Homeowners associations, local ordinances, industry bodies, all of them are producing the most profitable yards for their stakeholders, but not for the natural biome supporting the life on Earth here. And that's the first big hurdle that we have to get over: regulation and industry incumbents. There are rules about the front yard, and it's going to be our job to break them. I believe necessity will handle the legal side, but industry will have to be shown just how much profit might lay in sending out teams of farmers to people's front yards instead of teams of landscapers. Now, pests and diseases are a major issue for farming, a little less so for planting trees. A major portion of the educational outreach material that I'm developing will focus on natural controls for a variety of pests, controlling environmental issues to reduce susceptibility to bugs and fungus, and protecting plants from animal nuisances. The program continues experimenting with gardening and planting arrangements, and our personal homes have become the research gardens for the front yard forest and front yard farming community. Gary's currently integrating the research I've found into his business, encouraging his customers to plant trees that reduce their heating and cooling costs. And in growing this, we might inform more arguments against regulating people's use of their front yards for gardens or for trees or for whatever they want to do. Especially because if it goes against, some sort of industry body. There is a very real and emergency need, though, in America and around the world to increase food security and decrease resource consumption. The Front Yard Farming and the Front Yard Forest Initiative directly impact those needs. So the initial investments are small, and the benefits continue to grow over time, if you'll pardon the pun. I think this is a worthwhile pursuit for myself, and it may just capture some of the low-hanging fruit in terms of reducing residential resource consumption and providing for healthier communities. I hope I haven't totally flubbed this in delivering it to you, but I hope you'll look forward into the programs coming out. They're available at frontyardfarmers.org and frontyardforest.org. Thank you.